Home sales are down on America's cheapest and swankiest houses. Why? Completely different reasons for both. We're going to cover that on today's Money in the Morning. Well, hey there, stackers. Welcome to Money in the Morning, the show where we take an article from the financial press, break it down, and tell you what that means to your wallet. Unlike some other shows, which will just read you a piece, we actually dive in, find out the why, define some of the terms, and go into depth on the piece. Welcome to today's show. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy from Stacky Benjamins. I've got a great piece for you today. Bobby Rebell, you're going to catch her again later this week, but today you're stuck with me. But I promise I've got a great financial piece that you're going to absolutely love. So let's get the party started.
Good morning. You supply the coffee. We'll bring the headlines. Here they come.
Thanks, Laura. Our first piece today comes to us from CNBC, written by Diana Olick. Sales of the cheapest and swankiest houses are tanking, but for very different reasons. Have you looked at the value of your house lately? I know they say that Zillow is not the place to look for your house value, but don't you do it? I mean, from time to time, I go on to Zillow. Who am I kidding? I go on to Zillow maybe once a month and see how my house looks compared to other houses. And I'm not seeing it so much, at least where I live here, but let's dive in and see what this piece says, shall we? Sales of existing homes weaker than expected in March, but behind the headline numbers, an even more disconcerting dynamic is playing out. Both the high end and low end of the market are struggling due to completely different factors. Sales of the lowest price homes, those below $100,000, were down 13% in March compared with a year ago. It's a big number. According to the National Association of Realtors, this weakness on the low end started 2 years ago as demand began to soar amid very tight supply. The inventory of cheaper homes continues to drop for two reasons. One, builders aren't focused on the sector, and investors snapped up lower-end homes during the last housing crisis, turning them into rentals. About 5 million homes were added to the rental stock, and very few of them were replaced in the for-sale market. We actually talked about this a few years ago, about how disturbing it was that even though home sales were looking great, a bunch of those were investors. They weren't actually people who own the houses. And don't get me wrong, if you're somebody that invests in real estate, fantastic timing on your part, great idea. But when it comes to neighborhoods and people owning homes in a neighborhood, completely different story there. Back to the piece. In contrast, sales of high-end homes were soaring in 2017. $1 million plus sales were up nearly 31% that year. This March, sales in that price class were down 11% year over year, even though there are plenty of those homes for sale. In fact, there's nearly a year's worth of luxury supply available for sale now. Compare that with barely 3 months worth of low-end supply. The issue on the high end, according to realtors, is the change in state and local tax deductions, or so-called SALT, implemented by the Trump administration's 2017 tax reform bill. We just filed our taxes, said Jessica Lotz, Vice President of Research at NAR. And I think everyone's nervous about what's happening right now with SALT. We're just going to have to wait and see how much of an impact that is going to have in the high end of the market. The impact's already pretty clear in New York City and in much of California, some of the priciest markets in the nation. Los Angeles home sales fell nearly 12% annually in March, according to the California Association of Realtors, even as the supply of listings increased. Sales in the San Francisco Bay Area down nearly 11%. In California, where the tax burden's high, some people are finding they have to move out of state to afford to buy a home. As a result, home sales are down in metros throughout the state, said Redfin's chief economist, Daryl Fairweather. In Manhattan, the number of home sales in the first quarter of this year fell to the lowest level in a decade and was 16.4% below the two-decade average of all quarters, according to Jonathan Miller, president and CEO of Miller Samuel, a real estate appraisal and consulting firm. This is listing inventory jumped nearly 9%. Realtors say they hope today's lower mortgage rates will mitigate some of the pain on the high end, as well as help entry-level buyers compete for the few homes that are available for sale on the low end. The one thing both have in common is weaker affordability. Houses getting more expensive wherever you are. Prices not yet coming down. Home sales going down. And maybe we will see prices fall after this, but certainly on the short term, just looking at the one piece, which is home sales falling. Now, what's interesting here to me is this. We hear often about the real estate market, don't we? We hear about real estate, even city by city, but this isn't city by city. This is type of real estate, and there's a clear differentiator between the two different reasons why housing sales are down. So if we're going to look at any market, I think we have to learn to slice it more, and to realize that there's not just one little tiny market, whether it's the nation, a state, a single city. There's lots of different markets. But I didn't want to talk about real estate. Let's talk about with your own money. I often see in financial forums, I see people talk about, well, here's the way everybody should do it. And yet you see someone in a whole different circumstance has a different set of factors. I mean, people on the low end of the market, not that worried about state and local income taxes and not being able to deduct those as easily, having caps on those. People on the high end, intensely concerned with that. And it's not surprising that you see places where real estate prices are high, right? Like California, Manhattan, you're seeing home sales very, very tight in those high-end markets. Of course they're going to be. Saying that something is, and I saw this just today, somebody in an online forum saying, well, here's the way I'm always going to do it. Really? If you're 30 years old, things are going to change a ton. Not only will the world change around you, but you'll also see things change a ton for you. So if you're somebody who's buying a house that costs less than $100,000 today, not much there on the supply end. And you're going to make a whole bunch of decisions based on buying that house. Whole bunch of different decisions on the high end. It's my little anti-online judgy piece right there. Let's say hello to our friends hanging out with us on Facebook. We do this live in front of a Facebook audience 3 times a week, and I hope that at some point you can join us. If you want to, head to facebook.com/iStackBenjamins. Claudia's here. Hey, Claudia. She says she lives in Phoenix, and it's growing like crazy. You know, here in Detroit, things have picked up, especially around the downtown area, but out here in the suburbs, partly because of people moving back downtown, but mostly just because of people moving away from Detroit after the 2007-2008 crisis and how much the autos were involved in those. I've got a high school that's right near my house that was closed down. And the reason was not enough kids anymore in the area. It's an aging population and not enough kids here locally. Showing, you know, not only that Phoenix and Detroit might be very different, but also just the economic indicators from one city to another change a lot. Rebecca says, where I live, it's not just high-end homes affected by state and local tax issues or SALT. And yeah, you'll see in different markets, you will see different indicators really driving a market. It might be SALT. It might be the tax load if there's a high tax load. It may be local companies that are laying people off, hiring people. I mean, there's so many different factors that I love doing this live because I just lost that sentence halfway through. That's always the fun of doing this, isn't it?
This show is created by Joe Saul-Sehy, hosted and produced by Bobby Rebell and Joe Saul-Sehy, is engineered by Caden Thompson, and all put together by a pack of well-trained ferrets down here in Joe's mom's basement. You'll find Bobby at the Financial Grown-Up Podcast and Joe at the Stacking Benjamin Show. Go say hi to them there, too. Online, visit us on Twitter at Average Joe Money and at Bobby Rebell, or come join a live recording at our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/iStackBenjamins. I know you already know this too, but Money in the Morning is for entertainment purposes only. You should not act on anything recommended by a bunch of entertainers in a basement or even a Manhattan kitchen without first consulting your financial advisor. And second, dude, have your head examined. Have headlines you'd like us to discuss? Send them to joe@stackingbenjamins.com or put them on our Stacking Benjamins closed Facebook group. This show is a collaboration of Stacking Benjamins LLC and BRK Media LLC. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor Doug, and I reserve the right to always say, we'll see you next time back here on Money in the Morning.